All right. So I'm Paul Hoover, and I've got for you all a selection from the curious
Top
incident
secret.
of Silver Blaze. Silver Blaze is from the Somomi stock and holds as brilliant a record as his famous ancestor. He is now in his 5th year and has brought in turn the prizes of the turf to Colonel Ross, his fortunate owner. Up to the time of the catastrophe, he was the first favorite for the Wessex Cup, the betting being 3-1 on him. He has always, however, been a prime favorite with the racing public and has never yet disappointed them, so that even at these odds, enormous sums of money have been placed upon him. It is obvious, therefore, that there were many people who had the strongest interest in preventing Silver Blaze from being there at the fall of the flag next Tuesday. The fact was appreciated at King's Pyland, where the Colonel's training stable is situated. Every precaution was taken to guard the favorite. The trainer, John Straker, is a retired jockey who rode in Colonel Ross's colors before he became too heavy for the weighing chair. He has served the Colonel for 5 years as a jockey and for 7 as a trainer, and has always shown himself to be a zealous and honest servant. Under him were 3 lads, for the establishment was a small one, having only 4 horses in all. One of these lads sat up each night in the stable, while the others slept in the loft. All 3 bore excellent characters. John Straker, who was a married man, lived in a small villa about 200 yards from the stables. He has no children, keeps 1 maidservant, and is comfortably off. Tavistock lies 2 miles to the west, while across the moor, also about 2 miles distant, is the larger training establishment of Mapleton, which belongs to Lord Backwater and is managed by Silas Brown. In every other direction of the moor is a complete wilderness, inhabited only by a few roaming gypsies. As such was the general situation on Monday night when the catastrophe occurred. On that evening, the horses had been exercised and watered as usual, and the stables were locked up at 9 o'clock. 2 of the lads walked up to the trainer's house, where they had supper in the kitchen, while the third, Ned Hunter, remained on guard. At a few minutes after 9, the maid, Edith Baxter, carried down to the stables his supper, which consisted of a dish of curried mutton. She took no liquid, as there was a water tap in the stable, and it was the rule that the lad on duty should drink nothing else. The maid carried a lantern with her, as it was very dark and the path ran across the moor. Edith Baxter was within 30 yards of the stables when a man appeared out of the darkness and called her to stop. As she stepped into the circle of yellow light thrown by the lantern, she saw that he was a person of gentlemanly bearing, wearing a suit of grey tweeds with a cloth cap. He wore gaiters and carried a heavy stick with a knob on it. She was most impressed, however, by the extreme pallor of his face and the nervousness of his manner. His age, she thought, was rather over 30 than under it. "Can you tell me where I am?" he asked. "I had almost made up my mind to sleep on the moor when I saw the light of your lantern." "You are near the training stables of King's Pyland," said she. "Oh, indeed. What a stroke of luck. I understand that a stable boy sleeps there alone every night. Perhaps that is his supper which you are carrying to him. Now, I am sure that you are not too proud to earn the price of a new dress, are you?" He took a piece of white paper folded up out of his waistcoat pocket. "See that the boy has this tonight. You shall have the prettiest frock that money can buy." She was frightened by the earnestness of his manner, and ran past him to the window through which she was accustomed to hand the meals. It was already opened, and Hunter was seated at the table. She had begun to tell him of what had happened when the stranger came up again. "Good evening," said he, looking through the window. "I wanted to have a word with you." The girl had sworn that as he spoke, she noticed the corner of the little paper packet protruding from his closed hand. "What business have you here?" asked the lad. "It's a business that may put something in your pocket. You've 2 horses in for the Wessex Cup. Silverblaze and Bucket. Let me have the straight tip and you won't be a loser. Is it a fact that Bayard could give the other 100 yards and 5 furlongs, and that the stables placed their money on him? So, you're one of them damn touts. I'll show you how we serve him in King's Byland. He sprang up and rushed across the stable to unloose the dog. The girl fled away to the house, but as she looked back, she saw that the stranger was leaning through the window. A minute later, when Hunter rushed out with the hound, he was gone. And though he ran all around the buildings, he failed to find any trace of him. Now, the boy locked the door before he left it. The window, may I add, was not large enough for a man to get through. Hunter waited until his fellow grooms had returned, when he sent a message to the trainer and told him what had occurred. Straker was excited at hearing this account, although he does not seem to have quite realized its true significance. It left him, however, vaguely uneasy, and Mrs. Straker, waking at 1 in the morning, found that he was dressing. In reply to her inquiries, he said that he could not sleep on account of his anxiety about the horses, and that he intended to walk down to the stables to see that all was well. She begged him to remain at home, as she could hear the rain pattering against the window. But, in spite of her entreaties, he put on his large mackintosh and left the house. Mrs. Straker awoke at 7 in the morning to find that her husband had not yet returned. She dressed herself hastily, called the maid, and set out for the stables. The door was open. Inside, huddled upon a chair, Hunter was sunk in a state of absolute stupor. The favorite stall was empty, and there was no sign of the missing trainer. The 2 lads who had slept in the chaff-cutting loft above the harness room were quickly aroused. They had heard nothing during the night, as they are both sound sleepers. Hunter was obviously under the influence of some powerful drug, and as no sense could be got out of him, he was left to sleep it off while the 2 lads and the 2 women ran off in search of the absentees. They still had hopes that the trainer had, for some reason, taken out the horses for early exercise, but on ascending the knoll near the house, from which all the neighboring moors were visible, they not only could see no signs of the missing favorite, but they perceived something which warned them that they were in the presence of a tragedy. About a quarter of a mile from the stables, John Straker's overcoat was flapping in a furze bush. Immediately beyond there was a bowl-shaped depression in the moor, and at the bottom of this was found the dead body of the unfortunate trainer. Those are the main facts of the case, stripped of all surmise, and stated as boldly as possible. Thank you.